computer. Episode 110, People Pleasing with Sara Bybee Fisk. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the Mixed Faith Relationship Podcast. If this is your first time here, I'm so glad you found me. And if you're a regular and you're here all the time, I'm just so happy that you show up every single week. So thank you for being here, regardless of how long you've been here. I am really looking forward to today's episode. We are going to be talking about all things people pleasing. And if you're not sure what that is, or if you're wondering, am I a people pleaser or not? You're going to find all about it because today I have an expert on people pleasing. Sara Bybee Fisk she is known as the Stop People Pleasing Coach. And I am so excited to have her with us today. So Sara, welcome.
It is such a pleasure to be here. You and I have been talking about this for a while now, and I'm just so glad that we finally get to do it together.
Me too. So, well, okay, before we talk about people pleasing, tell us a little bit about you. It doesn't have to be in regard to coaching or anything. Just tell us a little bit about you and your people.
I am a woman. I'm Latina. I have the privilege of being in a happy marriage that didn't always feel like a happy marriage. It's probably one of the biggest accomplishments of my life to say that we really have worked hard at creating the loving connection that we have today. We have 5 children. I grew up in the Mormon church, and I really just loved so much about that experience and what it gave me. I did all the things that are available for LDS women to be able to do. I went on a mission to Bolivia, and I continue to work actively with some of my former mission companions in a charitable organization that we started called Yapai Bolivia that just seeks to alleviate poverty in Bolivia. And I have a lot of interests and not enough time to pursue them.
Tell me two of your big interests.
Um, I actually, I can't say this without smiling because it's kind of a funny thing. I really want to be a good dancer. I feel like I am the kind of dancer that can dance like silly dance in the kitchen with my kids, but I want to like know how to do Latin dancing and so I've started taking lessons on and off, and it's just me in my room with some YouTube videos by
I love
myself.
it.
Um, and then I just have a big interest in the outdoors. I live in the Phoenix area, and there's so many beautiful, beautiful places to hike. I will admit, when I was dating my husband and we came here to visit his family, because this is where he grew up, I thought Arizona was the ugliest place I had ever seen in my life. Um, I grew up in Central California, where it's very lush and very green, a lot of agriculture. And to move here in the beginning, I felt like it was a step down, but I have completely changed my mind. I love the desert. It is such a place of beauty and a groundedness that, like I said, I don't spend enough time outdoors. But if I had a couple hours on a day when it wasn't too hot, I would love to be outside in the desert.
I love that. And you've got your beautiful cactus or cacti. I always
Yes.
say that wrong.
Chai, yes. Thank you, Trader Joe's.
Love it. Um, okay, so you are known as the Stop People Pleasing Coach. So let's let's just jump right in. What is people pleasing? Give us a
People
definition of
pleasing.
that.
Okay, yeah, yeah. People pleasing is having the inside experience that you cannot choose what you want for your life. You cannot say the words that you want to say. You cannot ask for what you need and want. You cannot make decisions that you want because of the outside pressures. So it's having the inside experience of like lack of agency, lack of ability to choose, or feeling stuck, feeling like you're not able to really stand up for and choose yourself
Mhm.
because of what other people will think or say.
Okay, okay, what was your first little catchphrase that you said? That was the What'd you say? The
It's having
internal.
the internal experience of lack of choice,
Okay.
because that's something really hard to detect, and only you know if you're having it. So if you come over to my house and I am rushing around getting a drink for you and making sure that you have what you need and seeing to this person and that person's need and that person's needs, that might look on the outside like I'm people pleasing. I just am so concerned about what everybody else is doing that I am spending all my time and energy tending to and serving other people. That might look on the outside like people pleasing, but it's all 100% based on the internal experience that person is having. If they're full of resentment, if they're full of frustration, if they're sad and they don't feel like there's room for them, then yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we should take a look at that. But if that type of service is joyful to you and you choose it for reasons that you know, you've examined, and you really like, I don't call that people pleasing. I call that just being who you want to be.
I love that definition. It's a great definition. So this is your niche. This is like the thing
Mm-hmm.
that you love helping people with. Um, why, how did you get into this niche? Why are you so passionate about this?
That's a fantastic question. And actually, before I answer that, I just want to say, because this comes up a lot, the most common misconception of that I get from women who I talk to is that they think that when you stop people pleasing, you that means you're selfish or you
Mm,
are self-centered. And so they kind of shy away a little bit from, well, if I stop people pleasing, I don't want to be selfish, but the type of the way that I look at it, when you don't people please, it's not selfishness that is the result of that. It is self-connectedness. So I'm really connected to the internal experience that I am having. And it matters just as much as everybody else's experience.
hmm.
Everyone else's experiences and their wants and needs are not above mine. They're on the same plane. And so it's a common thing that I have to talk about and to talk women through is that when
Yeah.
you stop people pleasing, it isn't about selfishness. It's about a fuller opportunity to really choose what you do with your time and energy and effort. So I was just wanted to make sure I got that in there because it can be misunderstood. And I think, to circle back to the question that you just asked, like, how did I get into this? I was having the internal experience a lot of feeling resentful,
Hmm.
of feeling anxious. Those were probably my two most predominant emotions. I was resentful because I felt like I was not seen and that I just bore a disproportionate uh, amount of the load for seeing to other people, being in charge of other people, getting other people what they needed, making sure that other people were okay, and that nobody was doing that for me. I wasn't doing it for me. And so I didn't understand how to do that for myself. And so I was really resentful. At the same time, I was also really anxious because I wanted people to think well of me. I
Yeah.
wanted to be loved. I wanted connection. I wanted belonging. And most often I got that by trading behavior for it,
Hmm.
doing what I thought other people wanted me to do, being who I thought they wanted me to be was how I got that belonging. And so I was always anxious I was going to lose it. I was always anxious that I didn't have enough of it. And I was always anxious that I could make a mistake that
Yeah.
would make people not like me anymore, think badly of me, or find out who I quote unquote really was.
Mm. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the work that you did to figure that. I mean, how did you overcome that?
Well, I haven't overcome it. It is still very much a work in progress, and we get the onion and the layers of the onion metaphor a lot, but it really applies, and it's a good metaphor for a reason. And so, what happened was is that I was doing some work on my marriage. We had a lot of years where we weren't unhappy all the time, but we were unhappy quite a bit, and I really believed that unless something immoral or illegal was happening that I needed to try and make my marriage work. I was sealed. I believed in that. And I was starting to unravel the resentment that I was feeling because it came out in my husband's direction as criticism and as judgment and being disappointed in him. And that was really hard for him. So I was doing
Mhm.
that work. And then at the same time, I was a coach and I was in a master coach training program where you had to come up with a project. And my first project, I kid you not, I designed 100% to try and impress the people that were running this program.
Yeah.
I thought, what would make them think that I am a master coach? What would make them
Mm.
think that I am worthy enough, good enough, right? And the first project failed spectacularly. It failed publicly. It failed in front of all my peers. And there was a Zoom meeting where one of the leaders of this program just looked into the camera and said, Sara, what is happening right now?
Mm.
What are you doing? What's going on over there? And if the earth could have opened up and swallowed me and there was a button to make that happen, I might have pushed it in that moment because it was just so overwhelming. My disappointment, my anxiety, my shame.
Mm.
It was a lot. And it was so much though that it really got my attention
Yeah.
because my internal voice said, what is going on here? What is happening here? That's a great
Hmm.
question. Why don't we answer that? And I did not immediately put my finger on people pleasing because I felt like I was a person who could say no to things I didn't want to do. And I really felt like if you can say no to the things that you don't want to do, then you're not a people pleaser. But when I saw my desperation to be liked, to be accepted, to to really abandon myself for whatever it is that they wanted me to do or be, that's when I started to really understand that absolutely people pleasing is about being able to say no to the things you don't want to and yes to the things that you do. But it is about a much deeper need that we have as humans to feel safe and to feel connected. And I had been outsourcing that to other people
Mm.
my entire life.
Hmm.
So I had very little ability with myself to be connected to myself, to be safe with myself. I was really hard on myself. I did a lot of, criticizing and judging myself. And so once and this wasn't all in one moment. This was over a period of time, but when I could see that I was acting out of just the need for other people to make me feel like I was okay,
Yeah.
that's when I was really able to see it as people pleasing. And then what I did is I rewrote a new curriculum that was just 100% for me,
Hmm.
how to stop people pleasing. And I thought I would do it one time. I would use it to kind of pass this master coach training program. And it ended up just being the conversation I could have every day, all day. And so I do.
I love that. And you're so, so good at it.
Thank
I've,
you.
anytime I've heard you speak, it's just, I love the examples and you're very relatable. So I love that you do that. So, okay. So you kind of talked about this a little bit. So why, you talked about like the acceptance, but what are some of the other reasons that we people please?
If we think about human need, we have to have two things, safety and connection. And I mentioned both of them, but let me give a little bit more detail. We are meant to exist in communities. In, I don't love the word tribe because it's not my ethnic heritage, but in groups, in other communities where we are known, where we are loved, and where we can be seen.
Hmm.
That is actually a human need. It's a need that mammals have. And so when you look at the need to be connected, so much of the source of that connection comes from, do we feel accepted by the group? And every group has its rules, right? School groups have their rules, religious groups have their rules, ethnic groups, community groups, cultural groups, whatever. And so when you don't feel like you are accepted and loved by the group, that creates an internal discomfort that we are not meant to just bear. We are meant to try and figure out. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we do is we try and figure out what are the rules of this group and how can I obey them so that I can fit in and belong and feel accepted. That is actually developmentally appropriate for humans. And we spend a lot of our life doing that. If you think about even how babies come into the world, if you ever looked at a baby and a baby smiles, what do all the adults in the room do?
We freak
Oh my
out and we
gosh,
smile
she's
back.
smiling. Yes, we smile back. And baby's brain gets a hit of dopamine and the message, they like that. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
do that more. So we are programmed to please the people who take care of us. And it should be that way because a baby has no ability to take care of itself. And so what baby learns right off the bat is, okay, I cry, I do this behavior, and someone comes and feeds me or helps me or puts me to sleep or calms me down, changes my diaper, makes me more comfortable. And I like that. So I'm going to do that some more. So the very first connection is between I behave in a certain way and something happens. And so baby's brain goes into collecting all of the information, and baby grows into toddler, and toddler grows up. And then they have this massive library of what the people outside of them who take care of them like.
Mm.
And then they start experimenting, right? Part of the reason we call the twos the terrible twos is because they begin experimenting with misbehavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I remember sitting in church one time and my daughter had grabbed my necklace and, my earrings and all that toddler thing. And then she took her hand and she slapped me. And I grabbed her hand and I pushed her physically away from my body. And I said, no, no, you may not hit me. And she dissolved into tears because she experienced disconnection from me. I pushed her away from my body. I grabbed her hand and she heard the tone in my voice and felt that no as disconnection and punishment.
Mm.
So we learn there are some behaviors that are rewarded, there are some behaviors that are punished.
Yeah.
And all of that is really important learning for humans to belong. And the problem is that works really, really well for a lot of years. And it's essential because we need to be taken care of. We need
Mm-hmm.
to have older caregivers who value us enough and with whom we have a relationship so that we get taken care of until we can take care of ourselves. The only problem that I see is that as we become more and more capable to take care of ourselves, sometimes it is advantageous to not people please. And no one teaches us how to do that. No one teaches us how to tolerate the worry or the anxiety or the fear that comes up when we want to do something that is best for us, but might not be what the whole group would approve of.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so give some examples of that. What does that look like?
So, for example, and because I know your audience, and it's because it's a group of people that I love. Let's just do some examples that might happen inside of the church, right? I
Yeah.
remember being called. This is just making me laugh. I had a 13-month-old daughter when twin boys were born, and so I had three children, 13 months and younger, and I was called to be the early morning seminary teacher in my ward,
Wow.
and I love teaching. I taught seminary for like 7 years. I really loved it. And I did not feel like I could say no
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like it was a calling from the Lord and I wanted to do what he wanted me to do. And so um, that's a situation that I think a lot of women or people who are socialized as women and even men, men are people pleasers as well. We just don't feel like we can say no when
Mm-hmm.
it would benefit me, my mental health, my postpartum body that needs some extra healing time and attention. And so I said yes. I did say we lived at the time in Houston, Texas. And so the church building was about 35 minutes away. And so I
Wow.
said, if we can have it at a home in the neighborhood, I will do it. And it was really tough. It was enjoyable. I have a lot of great memories, but it probably would have been a better idea for me to say no to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's common now for there to be some questions about going on a mission when you are of that age. And there are some people who don't want to go. And so feeling free to express their reservations or their lack of desire to go on a mission, I think that is something that is very common. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think that I think the conversation has gotten so much better, but we also don't make a lot of room for people to disagree with doctrine or to have questions about it in a really loving, supportive way that tells them, I love you no matter what, and no matter what you decide about this, you and I, our relationship is going to remain intact. And so I think a lot of people are feeling stuck in decisions or situations that are not of their choosing because they're afraid of the consequences.
Yeah. I think that's fascinating. And I know that, so for my listeners, Sarah, what you were in a mixed faith
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So this
Yes.
is something that you're very, very
Yeah.
familiar with. And I think there are so many different times where that shows up that and I was trying to think of times where I know that I am a people pleaser, and then thinking like on the opposite side, that my husband and my kids, they have no interest in the church at all. And I was trying to let's talk about some of those examples
Yeah.
that I was thinking like one thing is like doing something that, well, you kind of mentioned this. Sometimes we do something that we're not okay with on either
Yeah.
side of that relationship. I know a lot of my clients, their spouses have asked them to read certain literature that they didn't want to read.
Yeah.
And I think so let's talk about where are some of the places that this would show up?
So if you're talking specifically just about the people pleasing dynamic, here's something that I think needs to be said. Part of why we exist in relationships as mammals, as humans, is because we are meant to accommodate each other, to respond to each other, to be reciprocal with each other. And so, for example, if you and I are friends, I want to know, and we are friends. So this is a great
Yay!
example. Yeah. But let's say that we live in the same town and we're going to spend a lot of time together and we're going to make our relationship closer, more connected. I want to know what matters to you. I want to
Mhm.
know how to please you. And I want you to be able to please me as well, right? Because
Yeah.
that contributes to the sense of connection and safety. When that becomes problematic is when all of the efforts to connect and to share are not reciprocated. That is the word that I'd really like to just put out there for people to think about, is because if and this did happen, right? My husband said, I have read these things on the internet. I'm having a lot of doubts and a lot of feelings and a lot of um, uncertainty about the future of my membership in the church. I was floored, right? It came out of what's beyond left field. I don't even know, but it just felt like it came out of nowhere. And so the reciprocal nature of our relationship, though, allowed me to say, I understand that is where you are. Here's where I am. I don't want to
Mm.
read the things that you want me to read. And it's not because I don't want to understand them. I can understand you and make space for your um, journey and your experience without reading those things. I don't have to. And so I think it becomes, in many cases, I don't know how else to call it. I don't know what else to call this other than like becomes very black and white. If you love me, you will read these things that I've been reading. And if you
Hmm.
don't read them, then you don't love me. And I think that's a harmful way to look at the mixed faith dynamic for sure, because there are other ways to be reciprocal and to be responsive to the other person in your marriage that don't involve reading things you don't want to be reading at this point. And I think it is unfair to couch requests in that black and white dynamic, because if you are a people pleaser, you're going to feel a tremendous amount of pressure
Yeah.
to please this other person by doing what they want you to do. And that might be abandoning yourself. It
Hmm.
absolutely was in the beginning of my husband's transition. It would have absolutely been self-abandonment for me to throw myself into some of the things that he was reading, because I didn't want to read them.
Yeah. And I think there's so many different, I think of my clients that just some of the examples that come to mind, like they, like with garments, their spouse
Yeah,
said, I just don't want you to wear those anymore. So they don't when they're still really important. Or um, I think I see it with alcohol. I've
yeah,
had clients say, I don't want this in my house. This is so hard for me. And so they don't share what is really going on for them. So
yeah,
okay, some other, well, a couple other thoughts. Or with media, like
yeah,
if you love me, you'll watch these movies with me that people are watching that feel very uncomfortable.
yeah.
So what do we do in that what do we do in that situation? That how do you listen to yourself and
Yeah.
to meet your own needs in a way that is, I love that word that you said, responsive. Tell me more about that.
Well, let me just say that there isn't going to be one answer that is the quote unquote right way, because this
Yeah.
is very individual. But I can definitely name some things to keep in mind, some values that can serve as guideposts. And let me start by saying the only fight that my husband and I had, which really was a fight, like yelling at each other, all of that, was about this very issue,
Mm,
because he was upset that I was not interpreting, because I was getting some information. We would have some conversations, and he was very upset about a lot of the historical things. And I wasn't as upset as he was. I
yeah.
kind of had the mindset that, like, listen, when a bunch of people get together and try to do something as a group, of course they're going to mess things up. Of course they're going to not get everything right. People are going to be hurt. They're going to make mistakes that humans make. And that really bothered him. It felt like an
Hmm.
oversimplification and a denial of the truth, quote unquote, that he believed and that we had been taught to believe. And so he was very sensitive and I was very sensitive. And the fight essentially boiled down to, listen, if you get to have your experience, I get to have mine.
Hmm.
If you want your um, thoughts and feelings to matter, then mine have to matter too. And I am willing to do that. I want to find out how we can do this together. But being responsive means that just because you want me to do something is not a good enough reason unless I also want to do it.
Hmm.
Being reciprocal means that I offer understanding or grace or space for something, and then I want you to offer the same. And so there's not going to be a hard and fast rule about what is okay and what is not okay. But when the safety and connection is what matters most, then other elements kind of fade into the background. It doesn't matter so much that I either read the same information that he has read or agree in exactly the same way. What matters most is that we have safety and connection to both have our own unique experience. And we went through, while I was still the really believing active spouse, each of those things that you said, right?
Hmm.
What about alcohol and substances? What about media preferences? What about the way we spend our time? And so, what I can say is it is messy as hell. And it also is so worth it,
Hmm.
because the one thing that I felt like we did right, if I can point to one thing, it's that both of us took the time to really decide, okay, now that things are changing and it looks like this church-centered life and future that we both had planned is not going to be what we are living. Do I still want to be married to you? Do you still want to be married to me without all of the church structure? And that's just such a huge, big question, because
So big.
inside of our faith, we do marry largely because we want someone else to share a faithful life with, and all of the kind of milestones that are laid out on that covenant path. And I mean, I really, really, even though I have now left the church for different reasons, I really understand that. And it is
Mm-hmm.
so tender to watch that evaporate or crumble, whether it's over time or overnight. It is so painful. But if you can start with, do I want you? Do you want me? If that's a yes, if the safety and connection in our relationship can be the most important thing, we can get through some of these other really big issues. It doesn't make them less important. It just makes them more easy to navigate, because the gauge is, do I feel safe with you? Do I feel safe to express myself and share my feelings with you? Will they be respected? And do I feel like our connection to each other is going to hold through all of the ups and downs of the things that we have to talk about and work through?
So let's say that you've got one partner that does, that they want this, and the other one is not, they're not feeling safe. What are some of the things that we can do to fit, to make that happen and to I don't even know that I know what I'm asking you.
Well,
Um, yeah,
no, go ahead and try again, because I think this really, the reason that these questions are hard to ask is because we don't ask them very
yeah,
often.
yeah.
And it's hard to put into words, but yeah, give it a shot, and I
So
have some thoughts.
let's say that there's a spouse that doesn't feel that safety and that connection. What are some things that they can do to, first of all, so they're not being a people pleaser and that they've got their own back, they're standing up, and to maybe initiate that. Let's start with that question.
Okay. We are not taught to ask for what we want and need. In fact, if you are someone who has been socialized as a woman and you've grown up in, maybe a traditional gospel setting, there's actually a lot of messaging in the other direction, which is, lose yourself, serve, give, show up, be
Hmm.
uh, be there for other people and what they want and need. And I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. We are not taught to have, like, if we're holding that in one hand, like my service to others, my the type of giving, loving, caring person that I want to be, that God wants me to be, if I'm holding that in one hand. In the other hand, what would happen if we held, like, what is my connection to me?
Hmm.
How safe do I feel with myself? Do I criticize and judge myself? Do I belittle my own needs and wants? Do I edit what I want to say? Do I spend a lot of time pretending and performing? Because the Heavenly Father that I know wants us to have both. He wants us to show up for loving, connected relationships with others, and to have a loving, connected relationship first to ourselves.
I love that.
So that's where I would start, because then when you have loving, connected safety with yourself, then it becomes a lot easier to ask for what you want. Like, honey,
Hmm.
I know that this particular activity is really important to you. And certainly you can just, let's talk about, the first time my husband wanted to try alcohol. This is exactly what I said. I know this is important to you, and I am trying to get comfortable with it as fast as I can. You might not want to wait for me to get comfortable, and I understand that. I would appreciate it if you would. The ball's in your court. And so I could ask for what I wanted. I could tell him
Mm-hmm.
how I was feeling. I could even handle him saying, well, I don't want to wait for you. I think I'm just going to do this on my own. I could handle that. And I could tell him how it felt and would feel in a way that felt very honest and very upfront on my part, and still did not try to control or manipulate him.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that we just have to keep a finger on.
Yeah. And I think one of my very favorite words in all of this is and.
Yeah.
I want to help, I want to respect you and to let you have your experience. And in fact, I think and is my favorite word. And I'm struggling with this. This isn't
Yeah.
something I'm not there yet. So I think that is so, so, so important. And I think the other thing that I was thinking of when you were talking is there's the commandment to love ourselves or to love our
Mm-hmm.
neighbor as we love ourselves. And I think we miss so often that you gotta love yourself. You can't love your neighbor to the
Right.
best of your ability if you don't love yourself. So
Right.
I think that's something that so often that we look over. And I think it so important just checking in because as you were saying, like we're taught to serve and to help other people. And I think that's this took me a while to really understand this concept because it was like, well, I do want to be serving. I do want to be doing these things, but doing it checking in with myself and am I doing this because I want to connect with people and to
Mm-hmm.
love them, or am I doing this to win their approval? And I think that's so important to check in that. So I love serving other people. I love helping and doing those things, but I want to make sure that I'm being authentic to myself and not wearing myself out. There was a great I don't know. I may have heard this from you. I can't remember where I heard this, but don't set yourself on fire in order to keep others warm. I just, I think so often we do that. It's like we're helping all the people and running around like crazy people when it is actually hurting ourselves, trying to do little things for other people.
There is a strong martyr complex that if we think back to the beginning of our conversation and about how we learn what gets punished and what gets rewarded,
Hmm.
in a lot of instances, this martyr complex gets rewarded in a
Yes.
way that just really instills it. I attended the funeral of a sister in my ward, and I just started cringing about halfway through because all of the people who spoke about her, they just spoke about her selflessness. She never did anything for herself. From sun up to sundown, she was constantly worried about what other people needed, taking them things that they needed and providing them experiences that they needed. And again, like I don't know what her internal experience was like.
Hmm.
So I'm not judging that as good or bad. What made me cringe was just noticing how the martyr definition really matched what I was hearing described as her life, and just having the question like is that what she really wanted, or is that what she
Yeah.
was just really programmed and rewarded for doing? Because we do get rewarded for setting ourselves on fire in order to keep others warm.
Hmm.
Why on earth would I be teaching early morning seminary when I
With
have
twins.
twin newborns, right? And I'm not fully recovered from the C-section that I had. So anyway, I think it's something to keep an eye on, because all that matters is your internal feeling of like, this is a choice that I am making for reasons that I like and that I know and that I'm happy with.
And I think I can't remember this example may have come from you, but I remember I think it's just important that we check in with ourselves. Like, if someone said, I think this was totally from you, but if someone says, hey, I need you to bring 2 dozen cupcakes,
Yes.
to be like, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I'm happy to give you a gift card or I'm happy to buy the cupcakes, but I'm not going to be able to do homemade cupcakes and finding out what am I okay with?
Yes. I have a friend who's a therapist, and she says this all the time. And it's so simple and brilliant. And she says, what I can do is,
I love that.
because it's focusing on what is possible. And so if I were to ask her, hey, Andrea, can you bake and arrange on 4 cookie platters, 6 dozen cookies? She would say, I can't do that. But what I can do is I can go to Costco and get a plastic case of their 20, I don't even know how many cookies come in a Costco package, but whatever comes, and I can bring that. And then it's up to me to decide, is that okay with me, that this is what she's
Yeah.
willing to give?
I love that. And I think that's so, so important to think about that. What am I okay?
Yeah.
The other thing, anytime I think of people pleasing, that, and I can't remember who taught, this may have been you as well, but just people pleasing is lying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think of that, we believe, in the 13th article of faith, we believe in being honest, but how often are we not honest and saying, like we're not? So I think that I think of that a lot. Am I lying? If someone asks me to do something, am I lying when I say yes? Because
Yeah.
I want to be honest. I want to be honest with them. I want to be honest with myself. I want to be honest with God. So I
Yeah.
like to think of that I think these are
You
all
know,
your examples.
no, and the lying one is not, but and here's why I agree with it, but I don't like it.
Mm. Yeah, tell me
I
about it.
Because it feels blamey, right?
Mm.
And to blame me for the way that I'm created as a human to seek safety and connection through, belonging in my groups, that doesn't feel right, right? Like I am programmed to want to
Yeah.
belong and to be safe. And second of all, I am not responsible for the way that I was programmed to be and show up. And so, although here's how I like to say it, it's not my fault that I am a people pleaser. It is my opportunity to change it.
Mm.
It's my responsibility to change it because only I can. But I just feel like when I get called, a liar, when the reason I can't be honest is because I will be punished
Mm.
with disconnection, with people's bad opinions of me. I think it just kind of casts it in a little bit of a different light. And so
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're a people pleaser, it's not your fault. Absolutely not your fault. You did not choose to be programmed that way. You did not choose to live in this world that is designed to reward some behavior and punish other behavior. And what it gives you is the opportunity to change the way you think about that, and to get some different skills so that you can tolerate not people pleasing, so that you can have a more self-connected experience. I like to talk about it that way.
I love that. And thank you for pointing that out because I think that was just something that's like one of my little
Yeah.
taglines, but I don't know that I'd
Yes.
ever thought about that. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay, I could talk to you all day long, but I don't want to take up all of your time. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap things up that you feel like would be beneficial to this audience?
Yeah. I feel like if I boil everything down, when you're people pleasing, you are saying words like, sure, I'll do that, no problem, or I can absolutely come through for you on that, or right, you are saying words and then feeling uncomfortable later because you're overcommitted, or you are self-abandoning, or you are overworking. Not people pleasing is just saying different words. No, thank you. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. I don't want it to go that way. No, that's not okay with me. Or here's what I need. And just feeling a different kind of discomfort. And
Hmm.
the one skill, because when you say different words, yes, you're going to be anxious. You're going to be worried about what they think of you. You're going to be thinking that you're selfish. You're going to have a lot of other uncomfortable feelings. But the difference is that those uncomfortable feelings that you have to tolerate when you don't people please actually push you in the direction of greater freedom and greater choice. And so the one skill that people pleasers need to be able to not people please is the ability to tolerate discomfort. And it really comes down to practicing that skill over and 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 over again and getting really good at that. So then now you just have choices. And that's what I really hope women have, is just the full experience of being able to choose what they want, knowing that they can handle whatever happens, that they will take very good care of themselves no matter what.
I love that. And that, as at the life coach school, they would say that discomfort is the currency of our dreams.
Yeah.
And that, my podcast listeners have heard me talk about that a lot, just being able to allow those emotions. So, oh, Sara, this has been so good. I so appreciate the work that you do and just for being on here. I know this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find out more about you?
I'm on Instagram, Sara Fisk Coach, Facebook as well. And my website is Sara Fisk, SARAF as in fantastic, ISK, .coach. And I would love to answer any questions. If any part of this has sparked something in you, you have some questions. That's what I do a lot of over DMs, is just answer people's questions. What about this? What about this? What about this? So if you have a question, I would love to hear from you. You can sign up for my email list. I have a guide, how to have a difficult conversation. Those can be hard for us people pleasers, and I would love to get that into your hands.
That is awesome. Well, go check out her resources, and you are fantastic. That is the perfect way to describe you. So I love it. Well, Sara, thank you so much for being here today. And I just, I really appreciate this conversation and something I think we can all benefit from working on. So thank you, my dear. And for those of you that are here listening, thank you for being here. And that's everything I've got for you today. And we'll see you next time. Mwah.